Good morning, guys. No crackhead trucker um, video today, I guess I could call it. Um, I got in around midnight. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Brought a load out here, and my dispatcher has me a load heading back. Loads later on today, and I'm heading home. Basically, I drop. It's a one pick, two drops. So I dropped my first one out in the Victorville, Apple Valley area. Then my second drop is in Lancaster. I actually live in Ventura County, so once I make that drop in Lancaster, I got about an hour's drive home, give or take. Not too bad. And that'll put me home for the holidays, get to spend a little time with the family. But I wanted to start doing educational videos on the trucks, how they work, what different things do. A lot of people operate these trucks. They're brand new to the trucking industry, and they've been taught how to inspect the truck for their pre-trip, and they've been taught how to drive the truck, but they don't really understand how things work. And a lot of times understanding how something works, especially for a new owner operator, can make all the difference between making money and keeping money. By that I mean, it does you no good if you have, a $9,000 week if, you wrote checks for $8,500 between fuel, repairs, maintenance, yada, yada, yada. And so understanding how things work helps you make better decisions when you pull into a shop and they're quoting you a repair, or you look at something, you think it's not right, and the part really isn't that expensive, and you're pretty comfortable doing it yourself, but then all of a sudden you replace the wrong part, or you didn't understand how it works, and you break something, or even worse, you get hurt. So I want to start doing videos where we can make them a little educational, some theory of operation type stuff, that type of deal. Today on Hotshot Dave, he kind of commented on brake chambers and the two chamber type, or the 3030s as some people call them, versus the single chamber, service brake only. And it kind of, light bulb went off in my little pea brain, and I'm like, that's a good topic. That's a good topic. You have to excuse my glasses are crooked. My headset's pushing up on one side. Couldn't figure out if my head was lopsided or what was going on. Anyway, so I'm going to jump outside real quick and kind of show the different types of brake chambers and what they do. And hopefully this is informative, helpful. A quick breakdown of your air brake system. Your engine is equipped with an air compressor, and it's typically bolted right to the engine. Most of them, I've never seen one that's not. Most of them are gear driven, so there's no service item there. The gears are bathed in oil from your oil pan, and they're self lubricating. There's no fan belt like an air compressor or anything like that. It's gear driven, and then there's a governor. Typically when you start having pressure issues, if you don't have a leak, your governor's gone bad. And so it's just not, either it's kick in or it's kick out is wrong. And so that's when you start having wonky air pressures. That then pushes air to a series of tanks. You have a primary and a secondary tank system. And so your parking brakes, the way they work is when you don't have enough air in your system, there's what's called a protection valve that will then release the air from your brake chamber, which is spring applied air released. Your parking brake chamber is. And so that protection valve basically makes it where you're not supposed to be able to move the truck once you lose air beyond a certain point. And so the protection valve is located in your dash, usually piggybacked onto your valves, the yellow one and the red one. Anyway, so let me jump outside real quick, and I'll kind of show the different items, and hopefully this helps get a little better understanding. Be back in 2 seconds. Alright guys, so we got the hood up on the old Mac here. I'm going to flip the camera around and it'll kind of show we're at the steer axle here. So this is the front end of the truck, and this ends up being your brake chamber. And so this is a service brake only. This is the air line. When you hit your foot, your brake pedal, you know, actuated with your foot, this sends air. Inside of here, there's a diaphragm in the middle. You put air on this side, it pushes, which then pushes this guy, and by leverage, it then squeezes your shoes against the drum. The newer trucks, you know, the higher end disc assemblies work similarly, but the equipment looks different. So this is a single chamber service brake only chamber. You don't have, on most trucks, I've never seen it where they have a double or a 30-30 style, as they call it. And so that is a service brake only. Let's head around to the truck itself, the drive axles. And so I'm going to crawl under here. Bear with me as my old bones creak and moan. So here we have another single. This is a single chamber, probably better seen on that one. So that does the same exact thing. The airline you see coming to it sends brake pressure, air pressure, to the front half of that diaphragm, which then pushes and creates that mechanical leverage to apply pressure on your shoes. Now let's go to the third axle. This particular truck is set up on the third one. I've seen where some have it on the second one. See how well I can capture this. But this one has two chambers. Maybe you can see it better over there. You see how that one looks a little fatter on the front? There's also this guy up in the very tip of this. So what you're looking at, in this very first part, there is a spring in there. Now that spring applies mechanical pressure and basically applies your brakes. When you go to release your brakes, what ends up happening is pressure is then put against that spring, and it will then release your parking brakes. Now we're coming back to the trailer, and trailers also have, I should have started here. I really should have started here. This is much easier. So, okay, so here we have a two-chamber system. Now, when you hear the term caging your brakes because you're going to get towed, what they mean is they pull this guy off here, and inside of here there's a screw that you can then stick a part through here, you turn it, and it will then compress that spring and release the pressure off the brakes so you can tow the truck if it's not able to build its own pressure, or you can't get the engine running, or you know, any other reason that you may need to move the trailer. But the way these systems work, it's spring applied, air released. So by default, if you have a bad air leak, some kind of catastrophic failure, basically what will happen is the brakes will self-apply. And the beauty is, when and if you leave your trailer sitting alone, it has automatic parking brakes. So differing from your other chambers, you know, this is what they call like a 30-30 type. So you'll notice you have two different airlines. And so one is your service brake, which, you know, if you look at the chamber, you know, it pretty much resembles the one we looked at on the steer axle, but it's got this guy in front of it. That has basically your parking brake assembly built into it. And so when we go to release the parking brake and we want to roll down the highway, air pressure comes down this line. It then releases your spring brake here, allowing the truck to be used. This other line is then when you hit the brake pedal, that provides your service brake. And so hopefully I explained that in a way that you guys get. But so your typical trailers will have on both axles, if it's a two-axle trailer, it'll have parking brakes on both, and then you typically have the parking brake or 30-30 double chamber on one axle on the tractor. So you have a total of 3 axles with parking brake, or emergency brake, some people call it. And then all the rest of your axles will have service brake, which is a single chamber. The parking brake, or this one here, doubles. It does both. You get service brake, parking brake. You get both out of these. The ones up in front only give you one. Whenever you hear the term caging the brakes, you only cage these. You don't cage the steer axle. You don't cage any of the single chambers, because there's nothing there to cage. This guy here has a pretty mean spring inside of it. If these things ever fail, I've heard some people say, oh yeah, no, you can take those apart and change out the diaphragm. These parts are cheap, guys. You can go buy this component here relatively cheap, way under $100, even if it's been, inflated the price to you. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you pay $100, it's still cheap compared to the damage or the physical injury you can do to yourself trying to open one of these things and servicing them. It's just not worth the effort or the time. Go buy new. And you'll also notice when you have new parts on the underside of your truck and you get pulled into the chicken coop for inspection, they like seeing the new shiny stuff. Anyways, I hope this helps. Hopefully I didn't ramble and miss key points. Stay safe, everyone. If I don't post another video before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas.